Hello, everyone. I think we're live now. My name is Brian Powell. Thank you for joining us tonight, giving us a little bit of your time on a Sunday evening. I think we have a great program for you. This is our coaches chat with Coach Chad Riley and, of course, former Indeed great Justin Morrow. We're happy to have them tonight to help host this show. I work on our athletic advancement team here, which gives me the great privilege to work very closely with not only our Monogram Club, but our fundraising efforts. And so the reason that we're helping to conduct these is it's just an interesting time, obviously, and anything we can do to help bring Notre Dame soccer out to you and engage you where you are, that's what we can hope we can accomplish tonight. Maybe tell some soccer stories, give you insight into things that are going on, and just catch up a little bit as we can in this environment with alumni and benefactors to our athletics program, and particularly men's soccer. So that's what we're hoping to accomplish. Justin has been kind enough to join us as our MC. This audience, you don't really need a huge introduction with him, but as a 2010 grad who played on some great teams here and has spent the last 7 years with Toronto FC and has kind of become a legend up there. And this last year, we're very proud of him. Actually was named the MLS Humanitarian of the Year award in their league for his work, and I hope they get more into that. But obviously a great fullback, great player. And when I asked Chad about some people to host, a few names came up, but he came back to Justin for a few times, and we're happy to have him. Justin, thanks for the time.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for picking me up. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And then obviously Chad Riley in his third year here. Many of you know him from who knows what all situations as his former teammates and people that have played for him and all sorts of things he may be coming from. But Chad's done a great job, getting us the NCAA tournament these first 2 years here and doing a tremendous job in our tough league. And I've had the great pleasure working with him. I can't say enough about him in that regard. He's been great, and look forward to hearing more from you, Chad, as it's been a tough year to kind of watch the team more so than normally would be on campus. So I'm interested to hear some things tonight too, but thanks for the time on a Sunday.
Thanks, Brian.
Nice. So before I turn it over, I want to make one quick announcement that I want to give you guys here some insight into because of something we're going to announce in February, which was just a tremendous gift for the program, something that's going to be attached to it for a long, long time. And that was the fact that we had Tom McFarland, an 86 grad, and his wife, Christy, decide to endow the head coaching position, which is a tremendous resource that gives us strength for a long time in that. And so we're going to put out a press release in February. Tom's in Corona Del Mar out in California and has always been great to the university, but this was the next transformational thing he wanted to do for us. And I won't steal his thunder when we have the press release about his motivations behind that, but he gave me a little insight into that. And it's basically about teammates and friendships. And so I know we'll talk soccer tonight, but a lot of times it just comes back to that. So a special thanks to you all, Tom and Christy. Very much appreciated, and it means an unbelievable amount to us here, what we're doing, and the long-term success and what it means to be Notre Dame soccer. So my tremendous appreciation from everybody here at Notre Dame.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I think that's a great way to start off. Thanks to Tom and the McFarland family for that. It just shows the strength of our program. I don't get to connect with the family all that often. I'm super busy up here. But whenever I do, I feel the love and I feel how special our community is. So I think that's a very appropriate way to start off. And now we can just walk through the timeline a little bit and talk about the fall and the spring and go through the program a little bit and what was the craziness of last year and what's to come and what we can expect. So Chad, if you want to start off with the fall, and I know there was a lot of obstacles and a lot of challenges that we faced for the first time with the virus in 2020. But we got some games in, we got 9 games in, and now we're in this in-between period between the next second half of the season starting. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Justin. And just to reiterate, a huge thanks to Tom and Christy for that, overwhelming gift to the program that just is, like Justin and like Brian kind of alluded to, just speaks to the power of what this experience and what this program is. And we just couldn't, like I said, it's just an overwhelming generosity from their family. But and I'm looking forward to it being announced so everybody can, everybody can share in that. But yeah, the fall, it's funny. We're just sort of a couple weeks ago starting to kick up real planning for this spring. And so you started talking about some of the ways you started the fall, and it seems like a lifetime ago, but I guess it was only a couple months ago. But Yeah, you know, when we started, there was a lot of unknown. We were happy that the students were back on campus. That was kind of the number one thing that had to happen for us to even have a chance to compete. And so that was great. We got started a little bit earlier than we normally would, kind of right in the first week of August. And I think, you know, one of the coolest things, because as you just talked about, kind of, I think our biggest strength as a program is just the friendships and the teammate sort of camaraderie that exists. And you know, not that we would ever want something like this to happen, but I'll never forget those first couple days of training. And it was just like, you know, the guys were just giddy to be with one another, playing and just having a chance to kick the ball and be around people that they really loved. And so that was just such a cool way to start it. And then, you know, from there, obviously you know, we had some unknowns that kind of went back and forth. Were we going to play? Were we not? And, you know, fortunately the ACC supported us, Notre Dame supported us. And so we were able to keep moving forward. And I think it was you know, looking back on it, it was a hard year. And I don't necessarily mean it was bad, because I think the guys really responded to the challenge. I couldn't say more, you know, nice things about the team than how they handled it, you know, because we had candid conversations. If we're going to do this, we're going to try to do it well. And they did. I think their discipline, the sacrifices they made, all of those things were just tremendous, that let us really, you know, move through the season pretty well. You know, the only time we had to move a game on our part was because of a roommate being a close contact. So anyway, I think that was really good. And I think it just was to me, for this current kind of team and the cycle we're in, was a pretty pivotal and transformational season for us, because I think we played 9 regular season games, and they were all, maybe with the exception of North Carolina, Sweet 16 opponents from the year before. So I think the quality of competition was great. And last spring, if we go back to when everything started, we were kind of in the middle of a formation change, so we're kind of getting to know things, and we're playing pretty well. And literally 2 days before they got sent home for what was to be a few months, we had just drew with the Columbus Crew 1-1 down there and playing well. And so, you know, from a soccer coaching standpoint, it was a little frustrating, because you thought you were really starting to grow. And so we had to start that all over again in the fall. And I think, you know, we started okay. But then I think what I'm most proud of is we kind of grew, and we were playing pretty well by the end. And you know, Pitt was number 1 in the country, who knocked us out in the semifinals. But even looking at that performance from the beginning of the year to the end was exceptional. And then on top of that, that was finals week for our guys. So our poor guys were taking finals the morning of that game, and you just had to leave it up to them how they wanted to handle it. So I was fairly nervous we were going to be down a few guys because of grade point averages this spring. But credit to them, we actually. We kind of knocked out a pretty good GPA, and yeah, they did. I couldn't be prouder of them. So it was a cool to see their response. I think, as we always talked about, you know, I think they'll be proud of themselves for the rest of their lives about how they responded to this challenge.
Yeah, it's we talk about it here too, just the amount that we had to go through to get on the field, to get back on the field, and the sacrifices that we all made. You talk about it being memorable, and certainly for me, still being able to play is through all of this is something that I won't ever forget. And I'm sure those kids, they only have a limited time, as do we all in college athletics. So for them to be able to get out there and not miss any time on the field, that's huge. And so moving ahead to the spring, what's the scheduling shaping up to be, and what are the parameters guiding that?
Yeah, so basically, it's almost like our season was split in 2. So hopefully, I think we just got our schedule approved this week. So we'll probably release it coming up sometime early this week. So basically, we'll play 2 out-of-conference games. So we'll play Butler to open the season. Then we'll play a Division III school kind of in a midweek. And then we'll play kind of 6 ACC games, and we'll be back into our traditional divisions. So we'll play Virginia, Duke, Wake Forest, UNC, Pitt, and Virginia Tech. And then, so those 2 divisions, the winners will play one another to get into the final against Clemson. Now, if Clemson wins their side of it, you'll go straight into, and whoever wins that game will get our automatic qualifier for the conference. typically our conference gets a lot of teams, and I think 10 of 12 got in last year, which is, it's the best conference there is by quite a large margin. The NCAA's shrunk in size from 48 to 36, so not bad, but still it'll be a little bit more of a challenge to get into the NCAA tournament this year. But that's what the spring's looking like. The guys start getting back to school January 28th, and then we kind of have a return to competition protocol of testing and different things to make sure it's all done in a safe way. And then we're fortunate that we'll get to start training, and you would have loved it. But the new IAC indoor space doesn't have a track around it. It's about 65 yards wide. It's closer to the stadium, so our locker room. So there's like a 10-yard walk or jog instead of the freezing run to Loftus trying not to fall. But yeah, that's kind of what the spring's looking like, and I'm excited. I'm excited about the opportunities for the guys, I feel like we got a lot better, and I think this could be a big spring for us.
Yeah, I think it presents a unique opportunity because, I mean, Notre Dame is fantastic for all of its resources and the development that kids go through there on and off the field. And they've always used the springtime as a time to continue that development, specifically on the soccer field, and take things that we need to improve on in the fall. But now it's a chance to have like an extra season, in the sense that now you have another very competitive schedule that you're going to play. And I think it's going to help the team make another jump to be playing those competitive games like that year round, because normally you're only playing a shortened schedule in the fall, and it's much more local than what we would play, or sorry, much more local than what we would play in the fall time. In the spring, we have a shortened schedule.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the other part that was nice about the fall is we just didn't have any midweek games. And so you got into this rhythm where you could really use video. You actually trained. So I think that was the nice part. You weren't just sort of competing, recovering. You were training. And so it was fun to see the group. You got to coach a little bit more than just sort of kind of tactics for games. And like you said, I think I am excited. Rarely do you get the same team that gets to be together for 2 seasons, but in effect, that's what we're getting here. So it is exciting to see if we can kind of continue that forward momentum.
Yeah. And another favorite part of the springtime for me is the super draft, the MLS super draft, and the guys heading off to the professional ranks. This year we had Aiden and Dawson drafted. That was just recently. So congrats to those guys. You want to talk about that a little bit and what your expectations are there?
Yeah. No, I'm really excited. Obviously, I think for Aiden, because it is, you sort of, behind the scenes, candidly, the MLS isn't the most like well-oiled, or some clubs are, but a lot of clubs, I remember sometimes they'll call you after they draft one of the players and like, well, what do you think? And you're like, well, they're a great guy, but I could have told you more before you drafted. I'm like, I don't say anything now. No, but yeah, we're really excited because I think Aiden's one of those ones that can be a little bit underappreciated. I think he really started coming into his own the last few weeks of this season in particular. And so I think that was really cool to see, because he's driven to do it. He's a great team guy, and it was really cool to see his name pop up. And then Dawson, who's, joining us as a graduate transfer, someone I coached as a freshman at Dartmouth and won Ivy League Rookie of the Year. He's another one I'm excited for. They're actually both guys that kind of grew up around Philly. So it's neat for them. And then, right now we're sort of trying to figure it out. There is, they did change the rule to where they could get drafted right now and still play in the spring. So I think, we'll see how it, I think there's contracts that are put in front of them before they go into preseason. Then obviously that's something to really think about. If it's more of a invitation to preseason with a trial, then, I'm not sure exactly what they'll do. And I think a lot of it will be club by club. Like I think Austin will be one way because they're building a team. And then I think, Atlanta and Portland, I'll be curious to see how they're doing it. But I think all in all, like we talked about the other day, great day for the program. I mean, I forget the exact numbers, but it's been going on for a long time, which is really cool. And it's getting more difficult, right? And so I think the league's just unbelievably good now. So it's a big challenge to get your name in there. So yeah, really excited for the guys. I think still figuring out. I think their plan right now is to come back to campus to get going, because like we talked about, and you can maybe allude to more, some of the negotiations with MLS, but no one quite knows when MLS is going to get started either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm so happy for the guys. Again, it shows the strength of our program and where we sit in that echelon. But I see the landscape changing and how guys are entering the professional ranks in North American soccer now. You see a lot more homegrown signings and whatnot, and I'm always so proud to see the Notre Dame guys get drafted and the college guys come through, because it's kind of a dying breed in the generation of professional ranks. The guys that get to finish their college careers and then jump into professional. And for me, it's my development that I had when I was at Notre Dame was so important to me being successful and getting to where I am today, just because I developed as a man. You know, I grew so much as a person. And you see a lot of these young kids come into the professional ranks 16, 17 years old, and you know they have some good talent, but it takes them a good amount of years to really get into it, apart from the ones that are extra special. You know, of course there's always outliers, but for the majority of them, they're just treading water for a couple of years first. And so to be able to stay at Notre Dame, to get that education and to grow as a human being, I see it as such a valuable piece, and I hope it never goes away personally.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do. I think I think the more competitive the league kind of gets, and people, different teams, I think will have their identities, and it is the ones that do their homework. I think the college draft is always going to be so important, because it's like, I wish he would have been at Notre Dame and not UVA, but like DK's brother, right? Daryl, Bright's brother. I mean, he goes from, UVA, first year and, not much. Second year has a great season, and now he's with the national team right now. And so I think there's always going to be that market, and it costs no money. Maybe we need to work out that Toronto should pay us whenever they draft someone, but that's the cool part. And like you said, I think, you go in there just, because it's hard, and you went through it too. San Jose didn't just give you a spot. You had to earn it, and you had to fight for it. And no, I agree. I think it's so valuable that you hope that it continues to have that value moving forward.
Yeah, and Notre Dame now being a part of the ACC is so strong in soccer. How do you see us shaping up in the conference and the conferences in general? How does the ACC play into the national landscape?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's, the first season I coached, it was like, woof, I forget, there was a week where, and I think we actually lost 3 games in a row, but we had only trailed for like 90 seconds. We played like Indiana, who was like number 1, Clemson, who was number 3, and someone else who was number 4. But what was the cool part is it's very hard. These games are tough, but you just get so much better. And so it's just not surprising at all to see so many of the guys that are successful when they go into the league have come through the ACC, because I honestly, and maybe I am, biased, but I don't think there's many better U21, U22 leagues in the world. We'll talk about it later, but Mexico, we play them, you played them, you're competing with them. We, we're fortunate to go abroad every 4 years. We went and we played Derby County's U19 team, drew with them, and they were winning the Premier League at that time, at that age group. We played Brentford's U23 team, who had just come back from beating Bayern Munich's U23 team 5-2, and we beat them 1-0. So I think, and we were good, but it wasn't like we were hands down winning every game in the ACC 5-0. And so yeah, I think nationally it's kind of just a beast that continues to get better because of the success you see. I mean, probably 50% of the guys who were drafted a couple of days ago came from the ACC. So I think it's such a good league for us to be in from a soccer standpoint, because you get better. It's hard. You got to survive it, and you get punched in the face a lot, but you do feel like our AD Jack said one time, is like, we might win a few less conference championships, but I think we'll win more national championships because of the level of competition. So yeah,
that's a good perspective. Are there any budding rivalries yet, either between the teams or you as a coach? I have 4 Maryland players on my team, and I tell you what, they don't have any problem speaking about Maryland.
They're the Big Ten.
It really drives me crazy.
Oh, I know. I don't like Maryland. I cannot feel for you. It was a great day whenever we beat them down at their place. But it's interesting. I think it's like the typical thing with Notre Dame. Like, I don't think really any team likes us. So, they're all pretty pumped to play us. But I don't know what the biggest rivalry. I mean, most recruiting overlap we have probably is with like Duke a little bit, maybe Wake Forest. But every game, just because like you've got to get those 3 points in the ACC is just a real battle. I think Indiana continues, I think, to be probably our biggest, and it's in a good healthy spot right now. But that game always has a little extra juice in it.
Yeah, you talked about it a little bit, the recruiting overlap with some of the ACC schools. Do you want to go into recruiting a little bit and talk about that?
Yeah, that's a tough nut to crack right now. In general, Notre Dame's always a little tricky because you have 9.9 scholarships. You got to be a great student, and you have to be a great soccer player. So it's always a little bit of a fun kind of search. And so now, with sort of not being able to get out and see people, it becomes even a little bit more challenging. And then, like you said, I think being sensitive to, a lot of guys in our team are going to have 2 years of eligibility after they graduate. So, how do you handle that? And then it's hard to kind of make decisions. So, regarding our team, we've tried to be really flexible with guys. So there's a thing called the transfer portal now that, because it is for some guys that maybe we're not thinking of bringing back for a fifth year. If they've got 2 years left, they might get an MBA paid for if they go compete somewhere else. So we're just trying to have those conversations kind of as they come up with the team. I think for us, like Dawson, I talked a lot with our lacrosse coach who's had good success taking, 1-year graduate transfers from the Ivy League as well. And, he just said it just has always been, even if, on the field it wasn't great, it just brought such a great perspective of appreciation for what you get at Notre Dame. And so I think that's something, you'll probably see a little bit, moving forward. But we've got such a big class coming in for this next fall that I feel like will be one of our real kind of cornerstone classes. That I think the next class will be, maybe the next two will be a little bit smaller. And I think, like a lot of people, we'll just have to slow down. And I just think it's kind of, as we all know, visiting Notre Dame is really the thing you got to do before you get here. And for us, as we started it, being a great teammate is so important that we want to get to know the guys so well before they get here. So I think we'll be a little bit slow for the next couple of years, but yeah, no, I feel good about the 21s. I like it. A good group of guys, good soccer players, love Notre Dame. And then we've got one kid committed for 2022, which seems crazy, but it's not very many relative to women's soccer. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's good. I think we've turned a corner and started to get the guys we need to be, really, really pushing for a national championship on a yearly basis.
I mean, you and I have spoken about it a little bit in the recent past, just about the profile and the makeup of the roster and how international it's becoming, and you're sprinkling that in there. When I was at Notre Dame, I didn't have many international players on my team. I look at the guys from Ontario that are down there now, and Matt was in the TFC system, and Muhammad actually went to school with 2 players that are on my team now at Berkshire. He went with Achara, who was a rookie last year, went to Georgetown, and Jacob Schaffelberg, who's one of the young guys that went straight from school to the pros. So I look at the different experience and different profiles and Patty, and it's just crazy to see. And I think it's a really good thing to be able to incorporate that and kind of develop the recruiting that way as well.
Yeah, and I think, like I talked about at the start, it's just, really you just have to have an open mind and kind of scour the world. I think, video and things like that are starting to make it to be a little bit easier to get to see, international guys play more. Like you mentioned with Mohamed Omar, he grew up in, obviously in Canada, but then went to school at Berkshire. So you got to see him a lot, even though he is an international. And then, we would watch TFC play a lot with Matt Redivosa. He, with the MLS Academy, we would get to see him play a lot. So that was nice. And And then I think, it's one of those things that we just look for good players and good guys, and wherever they are, we'll bring them in. But I've always, during my time at Notre Dame, we had a couple internationals, and it is fun because I think it's a cool part of our game of just how global it is. And you do really just, it is fun when you have some good internationals, because there's always some cultural things that are hilarious when you're first going through it. And, but yeah, I don't think we'll ever have like some of the teams we play. I forget, like Pitt had 10 of their 11 players on the field were international. Never quite be that, but I think we'll have a good diversity of guys on the team for sure.
Yeah. I always remember playing against West Virginia because they had a fair amount of international players on their team, and I always thought that not having them on my team, I thought it would be a cool experience. And now as a professional, I can definitely say that it shapes you as a person, and you need that. You need that difference in culture and diversity and background to experience all those things to be able to grow as a person. So I think it's great. I think it's great for the team. On the field and off the field as well. So good job there. I want to jump into the NIL, which is something that I'm unfamiliar with. Definitely was not around during my time at Notre Dame. That's the name, image, likeness legislation, and I think it's going to, from what I understand, it's going to change football and basketball, maybe a little bit more than soccer. But do you want to talk about that at all and how it might affect the program?
Yeah, I think, we're sort of, they were supposed to have a vote on it a week ago, and then it kind of got, paused for a little while. And so I don't know if we quite know what form it'll come in, but it's certainly coming. And I think like a lot of things, it'll probably be a tricky transition period to, how do you kind of, for lack of a better word, police it a little bit too, to make sure that it's, how much of this is tied to educational expenses, how much is this tied to actual things that the young people are doing. But I think overall it takes away some sort of limitations that, if you didn't play soccer at Notre Dame and you had an Instagram account and had followers, that you could get, money for that. Whereas if you're a student athlete, you can't do that. So simple things like that. Or you want to go back to Cleveland and have the Justin Morrow great left-footed soccer player camp. Right now you couldn't do that.
I don't know how many people would show up to
that. Or, even doing like personal lessons while you're here. So I think there'll be some ways that will really help, just give people almost a normal experience. And then the same idea, say you're in the business school and you had a great kind of startup company idea, just a much more straightforward way to use Justin or whoever it is, to just like everybody else. And then obviously for some of the, the guys with national profiles, the athletes, the student athletes with that, then I think there'll be another layer to it that I'm not sure how it'll necessarily impact us, but it'll certainly be a big shakeup. I think Father Jenkins has been quoted a few times that, there's a lot of support for it, kind of from the educational sense, like we said, not to have more rules in place that limit student athletes more than a student, just a normal student at school. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It's going to shake things up for a while for sure. There's going to be a lot of, I'm sure, mistakes and different things like that. But I think at the end of the day, it will get us back. It will get us to a place that has a little more common sense maybe than now.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think the structure has to evolve a little bit as the generation grows and social media and whatnot. You mentioned that, and the idea of startups. I don't know how many people were thinking of startups a couple of decades ago. I know that Notre Dame has a lot of traditionalists. Nobody ever thought that we would turf Notre Dame Stadium, but you see how all these little things can add up in positive ways. So I hope that it can come around and be a positive. And I'm sure, like you said, there's going to be some hiccups in the beginning, and as people figure it out, it'll be a little bit tough, but I think it could be a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
The Mexico game, it's always a chance for alumni to come back and connect. It's always a special weekend, even for the players as well, to play against those top opponents. With COVID and everything going on, what do we expect for that game and any opportunities going forward?
I mean, unfortunately, it got canceled last year. I don't think we'll be able to do it this year, but it's something that we're actually, it's pretty neat now. When I came back, when Bobby retired, it was one that I was a little bit nervous. I didn't want to lose that because it had been a relationship we'd been building for a long time. And so the cool part is they're almost as excited about it as we are. And so I think moving forward, they're still kind of all in on it, obviously with travel restrictions and things like that. It was going to be tough last year because, we got sent home from school anyway, but I think that's such a good time for, like you said, for the guys. And then I think a good time for our alumni to connect with the current group. And so I think that's something we're definitely keeping moving forward. And, we hope that relationship, goes on for a long time, because it's just a great, all in all, great weekend for the team and for the program.
Yeah, I remember towards some of my later years at Notre Dame being so excited for that game.
Yeah.
It was when Giovanni Dos Santos was the biggest thing coming up. He was at Barcelona, and he was that age, and they're like, oh, what's happening, because he had played in years past. Obviously, he was far past that at that point, but you never know who's gonna be playing that game. And I remember the great picture with Michael Thomas and Chicharito, and it's just like you just never know who's gonna be the next big Mexican star, and a lot of them end up playing in that game before you know who they are. So it's a special moment, like you said. It's a special relationship. For a lot of people that don't know about that relationship, it's kind of cool to see. So like you said, I hope it continues, and I'm sure once all this COVID stuff is passed, we'll be able to continue like normal.
Yeah, exactly. We still have that picture up in the office. I always look at it. I'm pretty sure that Chicharito won the header, but yeah. And then hopefully, actually on that, like hopefully more times we had a good alumni turnout a couple of summers ago when we hosted Liverpool, and I think that was seen from the university as a big success. And so
I remember that.
That we're hoping to have that be another opportunity to host, European teams, or just anybody in the summer, to because that was a pretty special time when we were sitting there with the guys, and a lot of the alumni in our stadium watching Liverpool train was pretty cool.
It's a great venue, and like you see, like the support is there. They pack it to, people come out, they come from all over to watch. So it's hopefully the teams keep coming, and hopefully Notre Dame keeps getting them. So before we jump into some fun stuff, do you want to talk about the team needs and anything there?
Yeah, I think, especially since we haven't been able to get together as a big alumni family for a while, since Coach Clark retired. We had a good one planned last year with Coach Hunter going to make his way back to campus, but unfortunately, we all know what happened. But I think, number one, and I think Tom and Christy really stepped up and helped us tremendously, is endowment. I think obviously this time kind of heightens it, but talking about name, image, and likeness, there's just a lot of stress on budgets of athletic departments and universities overall. And so I think the more help we get with the endowment, the better. I think my position is an incredible start, and then there'll be opportunities for assistant coaches, and then I think scholarships, we're in a really good position endowing scholarships, but I think that's kind of one of the next big things is to really help the legacy continue to go forward, is in endowing those scholarships, so that really that just takes pressure off the overall budget. And then the next things, I mean, we've had an incredible year in the Rockne Athletics Fund for soccer. I think that's kind of our next thing, because it is like, we're sort of preparing for unknowns, but I don't imagine there's going to be any sort of budget increases for a couple years, and this lets us keep doing the things that I think can give our program the little edges. It's taking trips to play the Crew over spring break, continuing just to upgrade and refine the kind of living spaces for the team, the locker room. Through some gifts this past year, we've kind of had more an activation, so the lounge isn't so much loungy now. I've got some bikes in there and stuff, and so people can get ready to train in there. And then the only drawback with the ACC is the travel, and so trying to figure out, it's always helpful to have extra funds when we need to kind of modify travel to be efficient for the guys' times. But that's the next one, endowment Rockne, and then probably the biggest need outside of that is, that same field that I played on, that same field that you played on, is the same grass. And so we really need to, we need to replace our training fields, because they're, unfortunately, it just gets a little hard to keep them up. And So that's probably our biggest thing outside of the endowment and Rockney is trying to, and they have a plan for that. So we're hoping in the next little while to kind of get those things more up to speed. But yeah, those are the big things that we need to get, I think to ensure these experiences moving forward is kind of getting a hustle on the endowment pieces of the program.
Yeah, and I use the word needs within the loosest sense of the term because of Notre Dame soccer and where we sit in this landscape of college soccer. I know that we have bountiful resources, but I spoke to it at the beginning. Our network of alumni, the way you support us is what truly makes us special and makes us feel like a family. So I appreciate you running through that and going through the whole timeline like you just did. And I have a couple of questions for you to end out.
The part I'm nervous about. All right.
Yeah, I didn't send these to him ahead of time, so we're gonna get some real answers here. I'm starting off with the easy one. Favorite Notre Dame soccer memory as a coach or as a player?
As a player, it was definitely winning the Big East tournament my senior year. I thought that was because we weren't great when we started, and I forget what we were sort of ranked going into that, but that was like the first thing we really won when I was there. So that was a really powerful moment for a lot of hard work, feeling like you've achieved something. And then as a coach, that's a good one. That's that is just the first one that comes to mind. So maybe it's not the favorite, but the first one was actually because maybe we were talking about Maryland, but it was the first time we got to the quarterfinals, and Chris Cahill, who's got the smallest legs in the planet, pulled a calf or whatever in warm up or something like that. And so then Andrew Quinny had to hop into the game, hadn't played much. He was his hometown, 5,000 people screaming. I think his girlfriend was there, all kinds of stuff to make him nervous. And he had such a good game. And then as a coach, you probably never admit this to the greater public, but I still remember the goal we scored in overtime to win it. For some reason, Dale Rellis, our center back, was way out of position, and the ball's bouncing. And I'm yelling at him to go back, but the ball just drops to him. He plays this unbelievable through ball. We score a goal, win in overtime, go to the first quarterfinals for the program. So that was a pretty special moment. But and I'm sure there's so many more, but that's the first coaching one that really comes to mind for me.
That's a good one for me because I was on that team. I was sitting on the bench of that game. I didn't get to play, but
that was our fault.
Yeah, not to bring it up.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of future pros on that Maryland team.
Was.
They had won the championship the year before, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, they had that goal that they came out of.
Maurice Adu was on the team.
Yep.
Omar Gonzalez, Graham Zuzi.
Chris
Seitz, yeah, they had a really high profile team. I remember that game. Yeah. That's up there for me. My favorite is the win the next year in Santa Clara.
Yeah,
because for me, and this is really strange, but as a Midwest kid, and I went to a Jesuit high school, I wanted to go out to the West Coast so bad. I wanted to get out to California. I thought it was the best thing, and Santa Clara was really high on my list. And they never sniffed at me. They never gave me a chance. And so to go out there and beat them on their home field, that was one that I'll never forget. And they had a pretty high flying team too.
That was their second loss of the year. There was 6,000 or 7,000 people there.
Yeah.
No, that was a great game for sure. You played more in that game too, so.
Yeah, I did. That's why it was a little bit better memory for me. Number 2, favorite boss saying.
Ooh. That's a good one. We actually still talk like every other week now. So I was thinking he probably isn't on this. This is a bit late for him over there. The first one that comes to mind, and we're still like questioning whether it's Latin, but the Festina Lente.
No way. Slowly. That was the one that I wrote too.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I was going to say the same thing.
You hear it so much that it's hard not to. But yeah, that's the good one because I remember that was sort of eye-opening advice when you're a young, eager player trying to be good, to have someone obviously so wise help you out.
Yeah, so for everyone that doesn't know, I'm sure you all know, Festina Lente means hurry slowly.
Yep.
And for me, it was really big for me because I was transitioning into a defender.
Yep.
I played striker in high school, dropped down to left mid for most of my Notre Dame career, and then ended up as a defender. But Bobby was really the one that taught me the fundamentals of defense and this idea of getting out to put pressure on the ball, but under a composed nature. That was new to me. And so this is something that stuck in my head to this day, and I can't believe we wrote down the same thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, moving on to the next one. One game that you could have back, either as a player or as a coach.
Definitely the one, and it is we lost to Michigan in penalties my last game in college. I think I would like to have that one back. I think I played okay, but just as a team, we were just inches away. So I think that's the one probably. And then as a coach, I mean, that's a tough one. There's probably so many of them, right? I think, my last game at Dartmouth was probably one. We lost in penalties in the second round. We had a really good team that was seeded high. So that one would be certainly one that sits with you. So maybe it's the common theme of penalties is the one you want back. So how about you?
Those ones are tough. So at Notre Dame, I lost both my junior year and my senior year to Northwestern to kick us out of the NCAA tournament. Yeah. And my best friend to this day played for Northwestern.
Blades?
Yeah, Mark Blades. We played together since we were 8 years old, and he went to Northwestern, I went to Notre Dame, and he knocked me out of the tournament 2 years in a row.
Those are terrible.
I'll never hear the end of it. No matter what I do in my professional career, he always reminds me that he kicked me out and ended my college career. But probably the one in my junior year, that was I think it would have been fall 2008. That was because we had a good team, and
that was Coupe.
That was an upset. So I wish I could get that one back just for the bragging rights at least. And finally, if you're not watching college soccer, which soccer are you watching?
Good question. I mean, MLS as much as I can. There's so much on. I actually got into, from one of the documentaries, I got into watching Leeds.
Elsa.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great documentary on Amazon. Was it Take Us Home, Leeds? And they actually don't win promotion in it, so I suggest that. And I do ever since we hosted Liverpool, and they were just really good to everybody. I've tried to watch them a lot because you sort of actually know their grounds guy that probably better than anyone else on their team, because he came over and helped take care of the fields, and we were helping him do stuff. But so I enjoy them. And then at the same time, the Man United, when we went over to England a couple years ago, Bobby got us in touch with them, and they gave us a really cool behind the scenes, like watch first team training. So still got to watch Man United. So probably bounce back and forth between MLS and the Premier League mostly. When I'm not watching college soccer, although even it's hard. The funny thing about the ACC network, Comcast doesn't have it, and I have Comcast, so I live like a mile away from a school, and I don't get it. I have to watch it on my computer on this screen. Yeah, no.
That's funny. Those connections are so special. I'm forever a Notre Dame fan because of Bobby's special connection, and he introduced me to Manchester United, and so now I'm a Man United fan. We had a great win today, so
they did. What a goal!
You're officially off the hot seat, Chad.
Thank you very much, Justin. You got a future in this hosting stuff. This is good,
man. I don't know. I appreciate it, though. I appreciate the time and having me on and going through and let me grill you a little bit.
No, I thank you so much. This is awesome. Awesome to spend this much time with you.
Yeah. Brian, you want to take it away?
I really enjoyed that. That was fun to watch. The only thing that really bothered me, and I have to say, it had to be Chad's fault, not Coach Clark, that they weren't playing Justin enough early on. I don't know how that came down, but that was a little troubling to hear.
Those were tense moments in the office, because I still remember Justin's first game as a student. We were playing, he was a freshman. I had just got there, and we were playing Drake in preseason. We put him on, and he looked like, he should be playing in the Premier League right away, tearing it up. And then, Bobby, which in his wisdom takes people slowly. So there was a lot of 2 versus 1 argument than me and the other assistant coach versus Bobby, but you generally know who wins. But
Yeah.
I do remember you always being my champion. I remember specifically a lot of times during the springtime, you working with me and telling me, "Oh, you got to be an All-American next year. You got to score goals. You got to be All-American."
Yeah.
That's the other funny story, and then we'll completely transition. But I still remember, I was like, oh, I wonder, I don't know why this popped into my mind, but when we were planning this, there was one time we were making the teams, and Bobby's like, oh, I need you to play, and I was, I don't know, 25, 26 or something, some decent shape. I was never fast, but Justin was still a left winger, and Bobby's like, well, we need someone to play right back. And then I saw Justin was the left winger, and it was like 11v11 day. And I just would do the opposite. I would close him down. I'd just run as fast as I could back to my goal so he could go up by me. But that was another funny thing that popped in my head when we were doing this. I got skinned a lot that day.
Hey, Justin, I can't let you go without the last thing I wanted to ask here is obviously winning the Humanitarian of the Year award in the MLS for starting Black Players for Change. Before we get off there, tell us, what should we know about Black Players for Change, and how can we help or support you in that? We're proud of you.
Yeah, thank you. So there's two things that come to mind, and I've done a lot of interviews this past year, and one of the things that I enjoy talking about is when people ask me how it all started for me personally. And I always take them all the way back to my high school days, because I went to a big Catholic school that really preached, being a man for others and doing a lot of work in the community. But while I was at Notre Dame, I helped start the local chapter of the NAACP. And so I talked a lot this past year about my time at Notre Dame and how my sense of community and giving came from Notre Dame, and the ideas that I have now were formulated while I was doing that. And my efforts towards diversity this year all stem from that, really. And so the Black players in this league, as a response to what happened last spring, summertime, formulated a nonprofit organization called Black Players for Change. And we came together to fight systemic racism in sports, specifically in Major League Soccer. We're all players in Major League Soccer. And we want to push the league on implementing policies and changing bylaws and whatnot that's going to make it more equitable in terms of representation. And then we want to help in our local communities as well. And so it's been heavy at times, for sure, as I'm sure all of us have been included in these conversations over the past 6 to 8 months. There's been some heavy conversations, but I'm energized by it. I'm energized by being close to my peers and fighting together towards one goal. That's been super cool. And like I said, it all started kind of at Notre Dame, and I think that's a special thing that I'll keep with me forever.
That's great. Thank you. And it goes both ways. We're proud of you out there, and love hearing the Notre Dame piece, but just proud of you as an individual too, and all your work in it. So thank you for that, and appreciate everybody's time tonight. Those of you getting back to NFL games, Chad admittedly said he has no clue there are NFL games going on tonight. So maybe
Chad picked the time.
Yeah. But thanks for everybody's investment of time, talent, treasure. We appreciate you and your engagement and following us and everything you do for Notre Dame and all the ways that you do it. Everybody have a good night, and we'll have this recorded and distributed for other alumni. So share it how you can and make sure others can get the message. So with that, we'll close and have a good evening. Go Irish.
Thanks, everybody. Go Irish.
Good night. Go Irish.